Welcome to the Program Design Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, teacher and curriculum writer turned program mentor and business strategist for coaches, educators, and online experts. Whether you're looking to create your first ever group coaching program or scale your current offer for more freedom, revenue, and consistent income, this is the podcast for you. Here you'll find practical strategies and encouragement mixed with a bit of manifestation and intuition to help you grow and design a program you absolutely love. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Program Design Podcast. I am thrilled to have you here, and this is the last episode of 2026, and we're going to be diving into a challenge that I'm hearing a lot these days from my current clients and potential clients. And it is going to be for you if you are thinking about launching your program in January or in early 2026. And even if you're listening to this at a later time and you're thinking about launching your program, what do you need to have in place and what can you let go of before you actually launch your program? At the time of recording this, it is December, and you would never know that it was only 5:40 because it's absolutely pitch black out here and downpouring rain. And I wanted to make sure that I got this episode out for you this week before I go away for 2 weeks. So we're not going away, but we'll be visiting family and things like that. But I had been thinking about potentially batching some podcast episodes for the holidays. And you know what I thought about it? It's such a great problem to have, honestly. I have a lot of new things coming on in the business at the moment. I have a ton of new clients. I have new clients potentially joining different programs. And I am thinking about my course updates. I'm serving my current clients. There's a lot going on. And I'm also preparing to take 2 weeks off to spend with my family and my kids starting next week. And my initial idea was to batch my podcast so that I had some over the 2 weeks that I'm going to be off work. But then I thought, I think it feels like a lot. I was feeling like, what can I do to lighten my load a little bit? And what would I have given my own self as suggestions or advice? Because when I first started working with entrepreneurs, I helped them with their systems and feeling overwhelmed with time and too much to do, right? And I said, what is it that I would have given myself as advice if I was a client? And I would say, what is it that you can let go of? What do you need to let go of right now to lessen the pressure that you're feeling in your work? And I was thinking, I think it actually is batching podcasts. And one of the things that I want to, model for the people who work with me is that you get to choose your business. It gets to be on your own terms. And the other thing is that it's really more of that cliche that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think sometimes we're so focused on I need to get this done and it needs to be consistent. And if I don't get this launch ready by January, I'm not going to make enough money or blah, blah, blah. We can get in this scarcity thinking. And I am more for let's look long term and let's really trust that the right people are coming in, that you are attracting your ideal people, that you're bringing your ideal people to you. And I have to say, over the last few years, I have really seen that come to fruition. And so this little side note before we dive into what I would prepare is I was bringing people into my business or into my world, but they just weren't the right people for me. They weren't the ideal client. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? I need to change my messaging. I thought about hiring messaging coaches and things like that. And I really did refine my messaging. And now I'm blown away by the caliber of people that come into my world. People who are like you, who are listening to the podcast, who come to my trainings, who join my programs, fabulous, caring, well-educated, just amazing coaches and mentors coming into my programs these days. It's truly amazing. But I was thinking part of the reason that, yes, I tweaked my messaging and I've improved my messaging and all those kinds of things, but I've also trusted that my ideal people are out there waiting for the right person, not necessarily me, but the person that is going to help them, that I'm a perfect fit match for my ideal clients. And that they're already coming into my world. And so they might not meet me today. I might not meet them next week, but they're coming into my world regularly. And at the right time, they'll be ready to join my programs and my work, right? And so I have this trust that people are coming to me and I'm making sure to get in front of them and I have my strategies, but I have this trust that my ideal clients are always coming into my world. And so for me to take 2 weeks off, it feels okay because I know that my ideal people are still coming into my world, and it's okay if I take a pause. And so that's my encouragement for you too. If you're in this like grind and you're holding on and like, I've got to launch for January because I need to get this going. And if you're feeling this tightening, I would encourage you to try that on, see how that feels. Like, no, I trust that the right people are coming, that the right people are going to join my program, and I can have a little bit more ease with it, which is something that I've had to adopt over time. So that's my little side note. So this is the last podcast episode of 2025, and I will be back first week of January back in 2026. And I have so many great things planned for the podcast in 2026. But let's start now with today's episode on what I would prepare in advance if I were starting a brand new program, and what I would let go of and how I'd actually even go about doing that. Because there's this narrative that I've been hearing from many coaches, mentors, is that their previous coaches have said, build your program as you run it, build it as you go, which I agree with to a certain degree. I think the problem is that sometimes we take it too far. So the thing I hear is kind of like two extremes. One side, if it's your first time ever creating a program, a lot of people think I need to create the entire thing like in advance, and then I will figure out how to sell it. The other extreme that I've heard from people who have launched programs in the past, who have had coaches who say, build it as you go. And here is the challenge with both of those scenarios. And I'm going to suggest a third option. Okay, so if you are creating everything in advance and then going to sell it later, first off, it's likely going to be trickier to sell. I've had a few clients who have come to me and said like, oh, my course is all done. Can you help me sell it? It can be tricky to sell because you've been creating it in a vacuum and you don't necessarily know that your program is actually right for the people who are joining it. And so you can create something that doesn't actually sell, which is why a lot of coaches tell you that you want to build it as you go. But we're going to get to that. The other challenge from me, from an education standpoint, is that you are creating in a vacuum. So when you create everything in advance, all your lessons, all of your sequences, all of everything that you want to have created, your workbooks, everything, because you want to feel really prepared, you're creating in a vacuum. So you are either going to get stuck in overthinking and analysis paralysis a lot because you don't get any feedback from anyone that actually like makes sure that you're on the right track. And you can also lose steam because it's such a great amount of work. And with the overthinking, I find that people don't actually finish their programs because they put so much emphasis on creating them first. So you can get stuck in overthinking. You can give up partway because it feels like this big, massive project. But on the other hand, if you build it as you go, what a lot of coaches I've found do is they take that advice and go, okay, I'm going to try and build it as I go, but they don't feel prepared and professional. So it either stresses them out and brings up a lot of anxiety that they're not prepared enough, and it really feels out of integrity for them, or it's just a really stressful, like messy kind of way of doing it because you're just responding and reacting to the people in your program and in your group and trying to figure out what it is that they need. Like I've literally heard people say like, okay, I don't know what we're going to go with this program. Just ask me your questions and I'll figure it out as we go. And that can work for some people, but I wouldn't say it's best practice for program design. Okay. And when I first started teaching people this concept, which is what I'm going to teach you today in this podcast, was actually when I was mentoring teachers. And so what some teachers would do, the teachers that I had were teachers that overworked and spent way more time working, and they wanted to cut back their hours, right? What some of them did is they would try to plan everything in advance over the summer so they were fully ready for the school year. But as you can imagine, the problem with that is just because, I've taught a whole variety, but when I was teaching high school, for example, just because I taught French Immersion 10 last year does not mean the grade 10s I have this year are going to be the same. They're not going to necessarily be at the same level of experience, the same level of awareness, the same level of drive. Like there can be such variation. So if I think that I can plan the entire thing in advance, even if I've had taught grade 10 before, I can't, because the things that I create are not meant for the students that I have in front of me. If I want to do a good job, yeah, I could teach the same thing year in, year out, but it's not tailored to the kids, the students that I have in front of me. The same is true for your program. Your program, even if you've run it before, even if you've been working one-on-one for years, the people that you have in your program are going to be different. And you can create your methodology that is your baseline that you can tailor to people. And that's what we're going to work on. But even if you've been working one-on-one, the people who join your group are going to be different. They're going to have different challenges. They are a different client than someone who works with a coach one-on-one. And different cohorts will have different challenges. So instead of creating it all in advance or building it as you go, I suggest more of a hybrid. So what I do when I create a new program, and I just created a new program recently that's still being built. It's called Pilot Program Design. So I've got my main signature program design, which is like my flagship, my signature program. And then I have my kind of first step with me. If you've never created a program before, it's called Pilot Program. So when I was creating that, these were the things that I wanted to make sure that I had in place. And there were other things that I built as I went. So the first thing that I absolutely made sure that I had in advance of that program is I made sure I had a very clear, reasonably detailed program outline. That is absolutely key to being able to create a program that is well tailored to your people without creating in advance. So I created a program outline so I knew how many sessions we were going to have, how long each session was going to be, what was going to be included in the course, what was going to be included in my live group coaching calls, what kinds of deliverables I was going to include, were there going to be workbooks, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing that I knew what my deliverables were going to be. So the things I was actually going to deliver. So I was going to have at least 8 calls. I ended up having more calls because I added some bonuses. I was going to have at least 8 calls. And I knew what the topic was going to be for each session and the result of each session. I also knew that those would become my course content. So the thing to think about so I'm going to share a little bit about what I do, and then I can give you some suggestions for you, because I would give different suggestions for different people. So for me, I like to have structure and then flexibility within that. I think sometimes people think maybe that I'm really, really structured. And sometimes people think that I maybe fly by the seat of my pants. I don't know. I don't know what people see based on what you come to see my trainings and things like that. I'm a person that I am very organized in my mind, and I like to have structure, but I also like to have a lot of intuition and get a sense of where my clients are at, and do we need to go in a different direction, and what do I need to, what are they needing to hear from me today, kinds of things. So I like to have that room for intuition and space and response within structure. So I have my program outline created. So I knew what every single session was going to be about, and I knew the result for every single section. For this one, because it was step by step, I also knew what the action steps were going to be for this program. So that's kind of the minimum that I would have in place in terms of structure. I would also have a start here module that would include a welcome video and would include logistics so your clients can get started right away. So here's how to access the Zoom links. This is the schedule that we're going to be following. Here's who to contact if you need support. All of those basics. That's what I had starting out. And then I also had my outline in my course. So I said Module 3 looks like this, Module 4 looks like this. And I said for each lesson, I said coming soon, coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. So people knew that they were coming. And I also had an idea of when these lessons would be coming out. So that would be the minimum. Anytime I've launched a new program, that's what I have the dates. I have all of those details ready so people know what to expect. And I have my outline that I usually share with clients too, so they know this is what's going to be shared for the duration of the program. So that's my first kind of baseline. This is what I like to have in advance. For pilot program design, because I had already done it so many times in different ways with other clients, I already had a workbook that was the beginning phases of what I was going to do with pilot program design. So I also included that It's still being refined. There are some things that I'm tweaking and changing and as I go along. I also have like the last few weeks of it are not created yet because I'm adapting and updating those. But I did have a workbook for this time. I don't usually have workbooks when I start a program, but for this one, it felt like I really wanted to have a lot of structure because the thing I found, which was an interesting thing actually that I learned from my clients in pilot program design, is they're at a place where usually the people who join pilot program have been thinking about creating a program for a while. And they've had to overcome a lot of those like mindset shifts and fears and things like that. And they're just like, I'm ready, let's go. Like they want all the strategy. Like I thought they would want more mindset support. But what I found is actually, no, they just want like, give me the steps and I'll do the steps. And like, they're just going for it. Like, you want me to do that? I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And they really want a lot of strategy. And they wanted like clear, like action steps. Okay, this is what I'm working on this week. This is what I'm working on next week. So that was really supportive for that group, was to have that workbook. But I don't always have a workbook. That's usually something that I add like a layer that I add in later as I run my programs. So that's kind of the basics that I had in place in terms of delivery. So that having that start here, welcome kind of section so people know what to expect. And then I had my program outline that I shared with my clients. And I also had my system for how I was going to deliver the program. So I had a Telegram group for this round. I don't know if I'm always going to keep the Telegram group. It might change to something else. And I have a weekly email that goes out so people know what to expect. So that was kind of my rhythms, my routines. I already had that ready to go. And then I knew that I could create as I went along. So from there, I had a really strong outline and a strong structure. And here is how I ran my pilot. So my pilot is like my beta, the first round of my program. It's a unique experience to run a pilot, which is why I called it pilot program design. It's like, here's how you run your first ever round. So for the pilot program, that is me creating it as I go. I am technically building it as I have my clients, but I know where we're going. I know where every session's going. I have a clear outcome for every single session. It's not like I'm just making things up on the fly. It's very intentional. I have a whole plan for how I'm running each week. Right? So that's the difference between like just building it as you go and figuring it out as you go along. Like I've intentionally created a program outline that is tailored to my clients. And that's one of the things I teach is how to create a strong program outline. So it's really tailored to your ideal clients. And it creates this filter basically to know what parts of all of your expertise you need to put into your program. So from there, the way I'm running in pilot program design at this point is I'm basically teaching the content live with some coaching and Q&A and space for workshopping, but a lot of it is live. So a lot of it is live teaching in this first pilot round. From there, in future rounds, it's going to be less teaching and more like workshops, Q&A, because the lessons will already be created. But in my first round, I teach a lot of it live, because I want to hear where people are getting stuck, what they need help with. Do I need to add things? I want to make sure that I'm teaching them live before I create the lessons that correspond to each one of those concepts. From there, what I've been doing each week when I can manage, I do have a lot on right now, but is that I will take the session that I did. So as of right now, pilot program design meets on Wednesdays. It's going to move to Thursdays in January, but right now we meet on Wednesdays. The rest of the week, I try to take what we did in those sessions and they become lessons. So usually one session translates to like 2 to 3 lessons in the actual core course. So I take when it's fresh in my mind, when people have shared with me what they need help with, blah, blah, blah. I've taught it live. Then I take those same slides. I might refine them if I need to, and I create the lessons from there directly. And I do them each week. So the course is being built out over time. The reason I really like this strategy is it has that idea of batching. You know, that idea of batching that you don't want to do, you want to do like-minded tasks to avoid task switching. When you teach it live and then you record the lesson right after, it's fresh in your mind. So it makes it much easier and faster to record those lessons. And it's not like you're creating an entire program all in one go. You're creating it over time so you can still focus on delivery, on running your business, on making sales, on all the other things that you have, on one-on-ones that you probably have right now. But it still makes it manageable to build it out over time. So that's how I'm building out pilot program design over time, is like I've created the outline. I know where I'm going with my clients. Then I create every week. This is what we're going to this is what my session content's going to be. And then from there, I create my core content, my curriculum. And then the next round, when people join, the curriculum will be fully built out. The next round will be starting in mid-January. The curriculum will be fully built out. And so that from there, when people join, it's going to be more Q&A. It's going to be more workshopping. It's going to be more feedback and less teaching, more implementing. So that's how I think about creating a new program and how I structure it so that it's still very professional and prepared. But I'm not creating all at once, not creating in a vacuum. So when you think for you, what's the right balance for you? I encourage my clients to think of it as a spectrum. Do you lean very, very structured, or do you lean very, very like not wing it, but like flexible? What's your natural way? Like, do you like to think on your feet, or do you like to be very structured? Because that's going to give you an indication of how much you should have in advance. If you are a real just roll with it kind of person and you don't like a lot of structure, and as long as you have like a very bare bones outline, you're good. You can go for it, launch your program faster. If you are a person who is more structured and you want to have more of that in place and that's your style, you don't need to ignore it. You can go with that. And I find sometimes people like my clients who are really structured have had people in the past tell them, just go for it, just figure it out, just build a plane while you fly it. I don't think that's really honoring who you are and what your needs are. And so I think you can add more structure if you want to in advance. If you want to have all of your slides ready, for example, maybe not your lessons, but your slides ready, you could do that. Or maybe you want to have like module 1 and 2 ready to go when people join. Or maybe you want to have like a clear idea of what each module is going to be and have more details in it. So I wouldn't recommend creating the entire thing start to finish, but like, what do you need to feel confident selling it and confident running it, and add in more of that structure if you need it? Because I think it's really important to acknowledge that in yourself and follow your own strategy. I've talked to so many clients who have said like, my last round was traumatizing. They used the word traumatizing because they were so worried that their clients weren't getting strong results and because they felt so scattered. They were getting great results. I've talked to them. Of course, they were getting great results, but it takes a lot out of you as the facilitator and as the mentor, right? So if you are a very structured person, you can still do it your own way. Add more structure, but just make sure that you're leaving room for flexibility and getting that feedback. I call it feedback loops. Making space for feedback so that it's really tailored to the people that you want to serve. So you can do it your own way. You don't have to go all in one way or the other, acknowledging what is the right way for you. So let's recap what we talked about in this episode. The first thing we looked at is those extremes of why creating a program all at once before you create it is really creating in a vacuum, and why building it as you go without any kind of guidance, direction, you're going to feel really scattered and overwhelmed, and it's likely not going to be your best work. I recommend having something in the middle where you do have structure and you have a really strong program outline first. So then you're prepared and ready for when your clients come in and you can still support them and figure out what they need. So you have that clear program outline. You have some pieces in place so they feel like their initial experience with you is prepared and inviting, and like they don't feel like a fish out of water. Like they're like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know where the links are. Like I feel good. I can join the program. I feel good. Then from there, I think about teaching it live and then creating my lessons as I go if I'm creating that core content curriculum, because then in next rounds, I can do a lot more coaching and implementation because those lessons are created rather than trying to do them all at once at the beginning. And for you, I would recommend thinking about, are you more of a structured person, or are you more of more of a flexible, think on your feet kind of person? And then that can give you a clue into how much detail you want to have in advance and how much you want to be just like figuring it out as you go along. There's no real right or wrong as long as you do have a clear direction that is result focused for your program. So I hope that this was helpful. As always, if you do want help creating that program outline and structuring your programs, I would love to hear from you. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I have loved creating it for you this year. If you have any feedback or thoughts on any of the episodes, I would love to hear from you. Have a wonderful end of 2025, and I will see you in the very beginning of 2026. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.